What's going on YouTube? My name is Eric Sun and I'm a photographer based out of Atlanta, Georgia. And today I want to make a video about 5 tips that I wish someone told me when I was first starting out in photography. Now these 5 tips are not the only tips that I would say are like the most important tips, but I would say that they are pretty important. Whatever career you're going into, whatever skill set you're trying to learn, making sure you build a very firm foundation is super important. And I hope that this will be able to help you guys with that. So without further ado, let's dive into it. All right, and the first tip is, which I'm sure that you've heard plenty of times before, is just the importance of actually knowing your gear. Knowing your gear, knowing what you have at your disposal and the tools and what they can do. If you don't already have a camera or a lens, then definitely do some research online and watch YouTube videos. Go on the camera websites, check out the specs, check out what they can do, what sets each camera apart, who kind of they're geared towards, in terms of like what kind of shooter will be willing to invest this kind of money in these kind of cameras. All of that research that you do will be super helpful for you when you do make your first purchase. But if you do have a camera, knowing your camera gear, knowing like the lens, the focal length, the aperture range, knowing the exposure triangle, knowing the shutter, aperture, and ISO, how that all affects exposure, knowing how to shoot in manual, knowing by heart just the different modes that your camera can shoot in, and also if you want to do video, learning how your camera handles in video with low light, with super harsh light, with all that stuff. Now, for me, why I feel like it's so important for me to highlight this is because I really feel like that anybody can be an amazing photographer if they know their gear and if they know what it can do, right? There's a lot of times where, at least for me, is that I had an idea of what I wanted my images to look like, right? I would like going through the grocery store while I was waiting for the line to check out, I would open, take some magazines off the shelf, flip through them. Every time I went to like Barnes & Noble or anything like that, any bookstore, I would go through the books, go through the magazines, and start studying the pictures, start studying how they look for things that were magazine worthy, right? Because that to me was kind of like the standard back in the day. Is like anything that was publishable in a magazine that was publish worthy, that's where I wanted my work to be at. I want my work to be at that level. So I started studying that, but what was really frustrating is that when I got my first camera, the images weren't looking the same, and I didn't really understand why. But at that time also, I didn't really know about like lighting. I didn't know about the inverse square law. I didn't know about the exposure triangle. I didn't really know much about my camera or anything like that. I just knew that you turn the shutter dial, changes the shutter speed. I know that if you look in the live view mode on the screen on the back of your camera, it'll kind of tell you what your image will look like. So I always just try to mess with the settings to make sure that the exposure was right, but I didn't really know what I was doing. So definitely being able to have hands-on experience with your camera and your gear and your lenses is super helpful, so that you know what you can produce, you know the capabilities of your camera, its limits, what it can and cannot do, so that you can know what kind of images that you can create, and your tools, like your camera body and your lens will be an extension of you creatively to be able to create whatever you want. It doesn't matter if you have a really great camera or a really bad camera. If you know how to use it really well, you'll be able to take amazing photos with it. So yeah, that's the first tip. Definitely know your gear. And the second tip that I want to talk about is figuring out a niche for you to start with. And so I'm not saying that once you pick a niche, like you'll be able to that you have to stay in that for the rest of your photography career. You can definitely change, you can switch, all that, but I think that figuring out a specific genre of photography that you want to shoot will definitely help you improve and help you grow a lot faster. So when I was first starting out, and I'm sure that if you're first starting out, you're doing this too, anything and anyone that's willing to pay you to use your camera, you're gonna take, right? I mean, it's more so out of necessity, right? Because you need to start paying your bills, you need to start paying your mortgage, your rent, groceries, food, all that stuff. And so you're just like, okay, anything that I can make money with, any shoot where they're willing to pay me, I'll do it. I'll figure it out as I go, but I'll do it. And I'm not knocking that, because I did that too, and I definitely understand the hustle and the grind that comes with that, and just being able to figure things out as you go. But picking a specific genre for you just to start with, I think will help a lot, because the way that you have to think, or at least the way that I think when I approach different genres of photography, is that I think very differently, right? Like, for example, if I'm shooting real estate, then there's certain equipment and there's certain things and looks that I need to capture that my clientele is looking for, right? They're looking for really wide angle shots. But if I use like a portrait lens, if I use like a 85 millimeter to shoot a home, that's not gonna work. That's not gonna fly, right? And you also always have a tripod. But if you're shooting portraits, for example, you don't really need a tripod. And the way that you interact with a person versus a house is very different. I don't talk to homes. You know, whenever I go in to shoot a home, I don't really talk to it. I don't see how it's doing, how its day is. I don't ask, okay, what kind of looks are you going for? Like, I don't plan mood boards when it comes to, a real estate. It's just the house is there, the furniture is there, the walls are there, what's there is there, I capture that. But for portrait work, I mean, I approach it completely different. Like, I always talk to my clients, I always try to like feel their vibe. When we meet together for the shoot, I kind of see like, okay, like this is the type of person that they are, and I try to always make them very comfortable. I always throw in a couple jokes. I'm very hands-on when it comes to like guiding them with poses, like in terms of like lifting your chin up, turning your shoulders a little bit more, shifting your weight, like all of that stuff. So the way that I approach each genre is very different, and I'm not saying that you can't grow in multiple genres all at the same time. You definitely can, and if that's the way you want to do it, that's cool. But I would recommend that if you wanted to just start with portraits, then definitely spend your extra time focusing on that, to grow that, to learn how to communicate with clients, to learn how to pose people, different body types, learn how to light different skin tones, learn how to capture different types of portrait work, like lifestyle or beauty or headshots, whatever, right? And just going down there, because there is a lot of skills. There are a lot of skills that you can cross genres with. Like, for example, back to point number one, knowing your camera settings and knowing what it can do. The way that you would shoot real estate and portraits, your camera settings are going to be different. So just knowing how to use your camera and knowing how to grow really well in one genre, I mean, you'll see improvements a lot faster. You'll definitely be able to start charging more in that specific genre. You definitely be more experienced, and you put in the hours and the time, and you've made the mistakes that are needed to be made for you to become better. But if you're trying to do it all genres all at once, then you'll go through that process all at once with all genres, and I think it just takes a little bit longer for you to get to the level that you know you can be at and to create the level of work that you want to be able to create. All right, and the third tip that I want to talk about is building a portfolio. Now, building a portfolio, I think, is probably one of the most important things as a creative, because you can say that you're a photographer or you're a videographer, but if you don't have any work to kind of show that you are, or what kind of work that you produce and the quality of work that you can create, then people aren't really gonna book you. They're not really going to give you the time of day just based off of your work. They want to see what you've done. So building a portfolio is super important. Now, I personally would recommend that you actually build a website for it and that you don't use your social media as your only portfolio. For me, I feel like it's just kind of difficult to pitch your work to potential clients if all you have is like, here's my Instagram handle. I think you can include those for sure, right? Because I mean, there's a lot of creatives that create amazing, beautiful work on social media, but I think having that with a website, an official portfolio you can direct people to, just looks a lot better, and it makes you seem a lot more professional. Just like an extra tip is that, like, if you're looking, let's say, like if you're trying to start working for someone like a client like Target, whatever, for Target, right? When you go down their clothing aisles and all that stuff, you'll see the kind of images that they take. You'll see that the colors, you'll see the way the models are edited, the way the models are posing, the way the lighting is. They're very bright, right? They're very bright, they're very happy, kind of lifestyle-esque, right? In a studio, because it's all like a solid background. And it's a diverse cast of talent that they use as well. And so if you wanted to shoot for Target or want to reach clients that have that kind of look, that are going after that kind of look and feel, building up your portfolio, focusing on that that style of imagery will help you land those clients, right? But for you to be seen by those clients, you need to build a portfolio that showcases that kind of work, so that when they stumble across your site, or when you introduce yourself and they look on your site, they're like, oh, this is the exact style and the exact look that we're going for, right? Now, definitely add your own flavor, and I feel like that's gonna come, your own style, your own perspective, and your own storytelling and your own creativity to the images. But being able to kind of mimic and being able to build up your portfolio in the direction of, to kind of target your target audience, I think is super helpful. I mean, companies are doing that with you, right? Anytime they're trying to sell something, they target to you, and they create their commercials and their ads cater to you, right? And they cater it to you by like type of font, animation, video, story, music, talent that they use, whatever. They're marketing towards you if you shop there to get you to buy things. In the same way, I think you can study what they're putting out for your sake, so that you will know how to market towards them. So tip number 3 is definitely build up your portfolio, because it is super essential for creatives, for any photographer, videographer that's trying to get more work. And definitely think about how you build it, your portfolio, to cater and reach towards the clients that you're wanting to reach. All right, and tip number 4 is never stop learning. Being able to learn and always striving to learn in your craft and in business, right? If you want to do this full time, learning how to become a better photographer, how to become a better business owner, better manager, all of that is super essential for you to be able to just grow as an individual and also just grow in your craft. The more that you grow and the more that you're willing to experiment and to learn and to be okay with making mistakes and creating bad images, I feel like the more that you'll be able to succeed and get to where you're trying to go and be able to create the level of work that you always knew that you could. I mean, I'm a firm believer that I feel like everybody can create amazing work. But if you're trying to do this as a business, you always have to continue to learn, or you're just gonna become stagnant. And I like to use this analogy whenever other people kind of ask me some tips and some advice in photography, is like, if you're not progressing, it's almost like you're standing in the middle of a river, right? If you're not paddling upwards, then the river is gonna push you downwards. And for you to just stay still and just sit in the boat and not do anything, you're automatically going to be pushed downwards. And I feel like that's the same with business, and that's the same kind of with your craft, that the less that you use it, I mean, like speaking a second language, like the less that you use it, you're gonna lose it eventually, right? I mean, you can get it back quicker than those that have never spoken a second language or like never touched a camera. You'll be able to get it back, but it's gonna take time, But if you keep learning, keep pushing, keep going, then no matter how difficult things get, you're always gonna be able to get to grow, and you're gonna be able to get to that next level. And also your clients will appreciate that as well, because the longer that you work with clients, they'll see your work improve, and they will appreciate that because it makes them look better. They're getting higher quality for their money, but also they're going to be more loyal to you because they know that you're constantly growing and you're trying to give the best you can to them. So always learn, always progress, and your clients and you will thank you later, because you're going to be able to get to where you're trying to go with your craft, and you're going to be able to create the images you always knew that you could create in your head when you first started out. All right, and the last and final tip number 5 is be patient and be persistent. Now, this isn't, a really technical, tip, but I feel like that this works with any kind of industry and any kind of career that you're going into. But anything that you're doing for the first time, anything that you're learning, being patient with yourself, but being persistent is definitely what's going to keep you going. Now, I know it can be super discouraging and it can be super difficult at times, especially first starting out in photography, because you're looking on Instagram, you're looking on TikTok, you're looking on social media platforms and on other people's websites and in magazines and on TV, and you're like, man, like these are great, and I'm so far from that kind of work. Don't be discouraged. Be patient with yourself and be like, yes, there is a separation, but I will be persistent. I'll keep showing up so that I will be able to get there. You know that there's a standard, right? And there's a standard that you've set for yourself and that you know you can reach it. Because you have that standard, I know you can reach it. If you did not have that standard, then you wouldn't really know if you're good or bad, right? But there is a quality of work that you know that is good and that you want to be able to create. And being patient with yourself, that being okay that you're not able to get there yet, but knowing that being persistent will get you there, I think will definitely help you with longevity. And this is a long-term game. This isn't a short-term game. You know, photography is learning any skill and becoming great at it. People have put in hours and hours and years of work in it. I've been doing photography for years now, and there's still so much that I want to improve on. But I also, when I look at my old images, I'm like, man, but I have come a very long way. No matter how difficult it gets, because there will be times where you will have really, really horrible shoots. There'll be some times where your client is not happy with you. There'll be times where you would have to refund money back. All that are growing pains. That is normal to go through, and it's okay that you're going through them, and it's good that you're going through them, because frustration and disappointment is you also knowing and realizing that you have room to grow. And because once you give up, that's kind of it. That's the end of the road. But if you don't give up, you're gonna be able to get there. Because if I can do it, I'm sure you can do it. I never thought I would be a photographer. I never thought I would be a good photographer, but you know, I'm able to do this full time. I'm super grateful and thankful, but I'm always learning, because I always know that with how competitive our industry is, if once I stop learning and once I stop having the desire and the love for photography, then when I cap out, it's not gonna be long before somebody else comes and kind of surpasses me, right, in that way. And then my clients are just gonna go to them, because they have the hunger, they have the drive, they're constantly always improving, and they're always trying to do better for the client. And I feel like the clients really appreciate that. All right, and so those are the 5 tips that I wanted to share, that I wish someone shared with me when I was first starting out in photography. I hope they were helpful for you, because they were definitely helpful lessons for me to help me in my photography career. So let me know in the comments if it was, and let me know if you want me to make more videos like this, sharing more tips, stories, and lessons and techniques that I use in my photography career to help me capture the images that I do. And if this was not helpful at all, definitely let me know too. I'll just delete your comment later. But for those that have been a photographer and for some time, share how it was when you first started out. I know it wasn't always peaches and cream, so definitely, you know, if you're willing to share. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and I promise I'll have more videos coming soon and short, and there won't be as big of a gap. Thanks so much, guys. Again, I'll see you on the next video. Peace.